Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. When we think about terrorism, we think about suicide bombers, we think about radical Islamists holed up in caves. But it takes a lot of money to be a terrorist organization. People have to be supplied with arms, trained, fed, housed, and transported to where they need to go. Now we know that ISIS got a lot of money when it invaded Iraq and went into banks and took their money out of there. And that they got a lot of weapons when the Iraqi army abandoned their positions and fled. So they did get a windfall. And a lot of that was American equipment which we had supplied to the Iraqis. But ISIS arrived into Iraq fully armed. They had a lot of weapons and a lot of equipment. And where did all that come from? Well, much of their funding and other terrorist groups' funding came from our allies. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and others. From their governments and their wealthy elite, from the oil sheiks. And now that ISIS has control of several oil fields, they are selling that oil on the world's markets. Now, our oil companies are not dealing directly with terrorist groups. There are brokers in the middle. But they are obviously not making much of an effort to determine where that oil comes from. I'm willing to bet that years from now, we will be shocked to learn how much of these terrorist groups' money came from our big oil companies, Exxon, Shell, BP, and the like. But we shouldn't be shocked. If you think about it, it's pretty obvious. And the weapons they are getting come from gun and equipment manufacturers all over the world, including here in the U.S. It isn't like terrorist groups make their own equipment. The weapons that they have all began as legally manufactured weapons. But there's way too many of those weapons winding up in the hands of terrorists and drug cartels and criminal gangs for it to be a coincidence. And much of this could be stopped by simply requiring a gun registry, by tracking guns from the moment they are manufactured and holding those manufacturers accountable for where those guns end up. But the gun lobby is very powerful, and they are determined to make whatever profit they can, and they don't care where their arms go. And of course, their allies are the gun nuts who are not smart enough to realize that the same people that they get their guns from are also supplying our enemies. But there is another contribution that the wealthy elite make to the terrorist cause. By rigging the game so that all the money flows to them, by shrinking the middle class, keeping wages down, and turning good jobs into low-paying jobs, and limiting the number of jobs available, they are contributing to the feeling of alienation and hopelessness that so many people are feeling today. A lot of people look around and they see how things work, and they know that it is wrong. That the business elite are just as immoral, unethical, and unscrupulous as the leader of any terrorist group. That there really isn't much difference between the guy who heads Goldman Sachs and the guy who runs ISIS. And all of this makes it easy to radicalize them and to convince them that violence is the way. Thanks for listening.